That would be it right there. Wow. Okay. Same. Got it. Sorry about that. Big snafu on my part. I was so busy focusing on the webcam, I forgot that my phantom power button was off. I was tinkering with some of the soundboard buttons and knobs last night. Dylan, put the game away. We won't be long. But since you missed it before, I will say good morning again to everyone that's here. Happy Friday to you all. I hope you're well. Hope your week's been going well. Hope your families and loved ones are healthy as possible. And I hope you are looking forward to a weekend. Hopefully, it's a weekend light with work, and we know, at least for our class, it will be. And we know next week is the last few days before spring break, which will be awesome. Or as awesome as it can be, I suppose. All right. So I'm hoping that everyone here has submitted their spotlight assignment. I did see this morning that there were 16 of them that were turned in, which is muy bueno. Still missing the last few. And that if there's any other work that needs to get in or turned in late, it needs to be in by the end of the day today. I'm going to be sitting down and doing a big chunk, actually the last big chunk of the third marking period grading tomorrow and Sunday. And so probably all tomorrow. I don't think I have that much left. But anything that is getting turned in late needs to be in by the end of the day today. So if you're missing an assignment, from a day or two ago or last week, I suppose, get it done and get it to me tonight, since it'll be in. Anything after tonight I will not take. All right, because the marking period ends Monday, and realistically, as I know there are going to be some people turning in things late, I don't have the capacity to sit down and accurately and authentically grade everything the way I need to. Wait, so if I did the movie, there is no work? Please say there's no work. I won't have to do anything today. Oh, man, I'm going to give Dylan so much work, but just Dylan. All right, Dylan, you are the sacrificial lamb of our class today. You're going to take on all the work, so no one else has to do any work. No, Dylan, you have work. Jaden, don't worry. Dylan can shush all he wants. He's going to get all the work. No, the only thing I wanted to do with you guys today is just have a light discussion on our film. And so I'm going to be putting just like one or two questions kind of in the chat so that you guys can type some answers, because I know I can't really hear from you. So I guess just real quick before I get my formal questions out, I got a handful. We'll see how well we go. Sorry, I'm just reading Dylan's comment. What did you guys think of the film? What did you think of the movie? I'm curious, just like initial feedback. I know that was one of the questions in the discussion prompts on the assignment, but I don't know. Give me a quick note on what your thoughts are about the film. I'll pause, give you a chance to answer. I don't have 45 minutes. Low key fire? Adam, I really want you to explain that. Interesting in what way, Nick? What way? Jaden and Shannon. All right. Jaden liked it. Shannon thought it was interesting. Pretty okay. Oh, were you now, Adam, discussing it with the Prez? And pray tell, what did the Prez have to say? I guess I'll hear from him on Monday. I'm copying my question to paste on over in the chat here. Cool. All right. So I just put the first formal question in. I'm just going to try something a little different today. So you saw my contribution to the chat. There's the first question. If you can give me like a typed, semi-formal response to that, I'm just kind of curious to hear your insights as to what you think. If your perspective changed on the idea of trusting authority, I think, and I mean, given our current circumstances, both locally and nationally and globally right now, I think there's something to be said about kind of raising an eyebrow, and we said this like in the beginning of our unit back in like February. How do we put trust in what people are telling us? Right now, more than ever, with whether in the example in the film where it's religion, where it's our government, where it's the media as a whole, heck, teachers and parents. All right, anyone in a position of authority. How's your perspective changed, if at all, on trusting that authority? So Adam and Dylan and Matt and Daniel, take it outside of the media, right? Let's cross that off the list. Anyone in a position of power, right? We can constitute having authority, right? And it's how they manage that power, whether it's the president, whether it's your, Hazlet Township police department. How do you go about trusting them explicitly? Yeah, Jaden, it was a little frightening and alarming to see kind of how common that was, especially in the capacity that I guess because it's the church and because it's such a heinous, sexual crime that like those two things you would think would be so far opposed of one another, that it's kind of alarming. Okay, Adam, good. I'm glad that you're finding it's causing you to question the information more, as you should always like question the source of information, right? So, and I hate to even use this as an example, but it's true. So, I've been talking to family a lot more lately, and so anytime my mom tells me that, oh, she saw this thing on Facebook, my brain immediately stops right there and becomes okay, take this with a grain of salt because it's very possible that this source that she's going to is not legitimate at all. So Dylan feels like, okay, he knows them to a point where I don't expect them to lie about things to me. Aha. And therein lies the ultimate false sense of security, right? That's where, manipulative authority figures want to get people to be in a position where they would not be expected to lie or be dishonest. And, the film, while talking about, a true story, and think about like your individual faith and religion in this case to parallel the movie, of course they want everyone to believe that, well, it's the church, they can't do any wrong, right? Like they're blameless, they're only doing good in the community and in the eyes of God, and that's such a dangerous kind of mindset to have. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't allow yourself to fully trust another individual or entity, but I think, Dylan, you hit the nail on the head there, is that when we don't expect that from someone, right? You expect to be able to trust your parents and to trust your teachers. And, if something comes along that causes you to not be able to do that any longer, it's almost as if you can't look at those people the same way again. And that's if the silver lining is that you have a different perspective on how things work, that's okay. That's a good thing. Adam, why do you think Mr. Garabedian is the best? Oh, that was one of my favorite lines from the film, and I'm glad that you like that hit you as like as impactful as it did. Um, because that was a quote that I wrote down immediately, and I was like, I love that line. That was so good. Right, because we always hear that first half of that expression. Right, it takes a village to raise a child, and that's something that even in my family, my parents used to say all the time because our community was very similar to Hazlitt in that it was small and everyone seemed to know one another, and we would help and support each other. But at the same time, when you're in that close knit circle, much like our town and much like in the film, the city of Boston with its relationship with the Catholic Church, that's the same village that, is also silently looking the other way when, one of their own doesn't want to play by the rules. And, trying to find a way to parallel that to, something even remotely relatable. Think about if you are on a sports team, at the high school, if one of your teammates does something a little unsavory, does the team kind of is the team going to say anything about that? Are they going to look the other way because, well, we don't want to damage the reputation of the team, right? If you have an athlete that's like doing drugs to try and enhance their performance, if we just look the other way, no one's really going to know. But as soon as someone says something, and think about like the Astros baseball scandal, it took someone finally saying something for this all to collapse. But everyone that was part of that team is an accomplice because they did nothing, right? And I'm sure you've heard the term in a lot of, like anti-drug propaganda around the school or bullying propaganda. You've heard the term, right? Passive bystander. That's essentially what the whole town was and city was in this film. So, Jaden, yes, that is Yoshi. No, it's Yoshi. He was visiting yesterday, and I figured we'd keep him here today, and he can join our class. Jaden dabbed. There you go. Amy, I'm sorry the film didn't change your perspective on anything. That's kind of a bummer to hear. All right, we're going to jump to so many tabs and windows open. Excuse me. Got the sniffles. All right, so second question for the chat is did it change your stance on the importance of reporting? And I think this is a simple question, but it's also one that bears discussing even lightly, just with the whole advent of fake news. And I know a lot of you said that you don't watch or listen to the media, and again, I would encourage you to do that. But there's a lot of things out there, especially in the political spectrum, where so and so says this, and people go, well, that's fantastic, and then these three people come out and say, well, hold on, what this person said is actually incorrect. And so you've got a group of people that are saying, well, he said it, so it must be true, and you've got a group of people that are saying, well, he said this incorrectly, and so it creates some tension. And so I'm curious if you guys think that institutions like the Boston Globe, like the Spotlight team specifically, if they hold value and think they're important, if you think they're important to contributing to, truth and honesty in today's society, or do they create more issues? Of course, it takes a lot to get the truth. Dedication, without question, Dan. Absolutely. And think about the personal toll that these characters went through. You had Sasha and her close relationship with her grandmother, right? And how she mentioned her grandmother goes to church 3 days a week. This story is going to crush her. The gentleman Matt, who found out that one of the priests that was put on sick leave and relocated lives around the corner from him, right? And he put those signs on his fridge to his kids with the picture of the house saying, stay away from this street. And even he approached his boss saying, hey, listen, man, I've got kids and there's this guy around the corner. we got to get this out there now because I don't want my kids and neighborhood to be in danger. And then even Walter, ruined more than one or two friendships trying to get this story out there. I think it says something that even the people that know they're doing a good deed for the betterment of like their home and hometown and city still kind of persevere through personal conflict. Shannon and Jaden, good. I'm glad that at least it was eye opening in the kind of like that behind the scenes, like this is really what goes on, and good reporting, like this, I think this does a really great job of depicting what good reporting looks like, and a lot of people think that reporters are, you know, I think the first image that tends to come to mind is like reporters in a press conference, right? The president's speaking, and there's like 100 people in front of him, and they're all taking pictures, and they're trying to ask questions. And sometimes that's what we think of when we think of a reporter, or we think of someone at a news desk, or we think of someone on the street corner with a microphone, reporting on the fire that's going on in the background. But like there's a quieter, more methodical approach to reporting, and I think this film depicts it well. And I think one of the things that stands out, if you and I forget the other character's name. It was the gentleman that Sasha had interviewed in regards to his past troubles, and then she also was interviewing the gentleman who had formed the committee of, not the committee, but the group of abuse survivors. And if you really pay attention to the character's performance, or the actor's performance, the character doesn't really show a lot of compassion in the middle of those interviews. And I think that was a really deliberate choice by the filmmakers, to show that they're doing their job first and getting information and truth first. And then anything after that is kind of secondary. And so you would expect, maybe in a more traditional film, if this were a conversation between two people, for that character to be a little bit more compassionate and understanding. But instead, she keeps driving the questions to get that information. And I think that was just a really subtle way to depict kind of what reporters have to go through. Their personal take and opinion and preference and emotion kind of immediately takes a back seat. And getting to the heart and truth of that information is the key thing there. So like even I wanted her to be more like, be compassionate, like lend a shoulder to this guy who's clearly hurting and going through some stuff. But she was just not cold, like professionally shielded. And I think that was a really great choice. Right, Adam. Thank you for pointing that out, Mike. Right, the Mark Ruffalo, um, the Incredible Hulk. Had talked about maybe going back to church one day and how that's like less likely to happen now, given everything he's learned about this whole situation. Phil and Joey. Adam, explain. You're talking about the kids, the son. Oh my God, I can't even say the sentence correctly. Matt's kids. Are their names Phil and Joey? That would be a nice attention to detail. It may have been on the fridge in that sign he made. I'm not really sure. Well, if it isn't that exciting, cool. All right. Well, I'm hoping at the very least. Was there anyone that just didn't understand what was going on in the film? Oh, nice, Adam. Thank you. Oh, right. Yep, you're right. There was one or two times where I definitely had to pause and go back a few seconds to catch someone's name again. So I definitely had IMDb open while I was watching, just for a quick reference. Thankfully, the cast was kind of small. What did you guys think of the legal portion that was explored a little bit, right? With the other lawyer. His name was Eric McLeish. He was the one that they interviewed early on in like the really fancy looking office building, and how, you know, they were trying to get information with him. He just kind of was like, I can't tell you. You know, like, did that make you feel like the system was kind of broken in some way? I mean, there is some legal reason for that, like I'd mentioned before the film started. Adam, that's a great question. So, yeah, uh, it's kind of what's the right word I'm looking for here? And of course, I don't have that character's information pulled up. The gentleman that formed the oh my god, the organization, Phil Saviano, is mentioned a few times. He's the guy that comes in and he's talking about how this has been going on forever. They interviewed him in their office, all five of them at once, and he was the one that sent them some of the material before, as did the lawyer. But they had mentioned that that story was just kind of combed over and buried. And then it was revealed towards the end of the film that Walter was the one that had originally buried that story. They said they used the term they buried it in Metro. Metro is usually part of the newspaper that's just kind of like quick local news. And so they took that information and they did print a story on it, but they didn't give it the dedication that it needed or required. And he kind of chalked that up to, you know, being young and new, and not really knowing. And so there was information sent their way that, thankfully, when this new person, Marty, came in, had kind of said, "You're on this project." Right. Yep. And he mentioned kind of at the end that, hey, I sent you this stuff like, you know, 8 years ago or whatever it was. And, because he was the one that was kind of the mediator between the church and then the victims, right? So, if there was a sexual abuse victim that came forward, Michaelish was the one that would kind of go in and say, all right, well, the church is, you know, here's what we're going to do. We're going to send this person to rehabilitation, and they're going to, you know, be removed from the community for a certain amount of time. And, you know, here's a little money, but, you know, the church would really appreciate it if, you know, if after this conversation, it never came up again. And so most people were like, well, I'm not going to go against the church. And if you're going to take some action and you're going to give me a little money, then okay. And so, yeah, he did send that to them early. And the number at the time of 20 was probably alarmingly high. And of course, we know towards the end of the film that it definitely jumped up quite a bit to 87, I think it was, which is just astonishing. Sorry, I'm talking so fast. I got to breathe away from the mic. Cool. All right. Well, I'm hoping on some level, even if it's just a what's the right phrasing here? You know, even if it's that you enjoyed a film that maybe you didn't think you would, I'm hoping it opened your eyes to, you know, kind of some of the things going on in the world that, you know, are not really spoken about, talked about, and then, as you saw in the film, tried to, you know, they're covered up. I'm hoping that you found that, you know, this was a worthwhile experience and, you know, a valuable use of your time, just to kind of open your eyes a little bit. And of course, since it tethers so nicely to, you know, what we've been doing with broadcast journalism, on top of it being a really good film, you know, well made, well acted, well directed. You know, we're going to shift back to the filmmaking kind of side of things when we're back from break. So I'm looking forward to that. What was Jim's job exactly? Jim, the former priest? Ooh. So Jim, wow. So Jim was Walter's old friend. He was also an attorney um, who defended priests of child molestation. And I think I misspoke a second ago. I got Jim confused with Michaelish. Michaelish was the one who would try and represent the victims. So I apologize. That was a misspoken. Michaelish represented the victims. Jim Sullivan was the one who represented the priests. And so that's why Walter at the end of the film goes to Jim in his home and says, hey, like, kind of calls him out and says, right, verify this list. And Jim, of course, gets angry and throws him out. So Jim, in the time that he's retired, right? They show him golfing earlier. He was formerly a defense attorney, and then so at the end of the film, he comes back out and kind of tells Robbie, like, "All right, we're done, but give me that list." And he circles right both pages in their entirety and just kind of shoves it at him and walks away. So he was the person that was defending the priests. Michaelish was the one representing the victims. So I misspoke there, and I'm glad you asked that question, Adam, because it allowed me to clarify that a little bit. Oh. All right, gang. So I'll leave the chat open. If you guys have other questions or comments or things that you want to discuss, throw them in there. But I'm going to say formally, let's wrap on today. Let's take an early Friday. You got a half an hour, hopefully. If you're like Dylan and don't have any other work, you get a little bit of downtime, which is awesome. Find something to enjoy your weekend with. Go outside if the weather permits, because you just get away from screens, get some exercise, get the blood flowing. And we're going to reconvene on Tuesday. Quickly, I think my plan for next week is to move a little quick. I am tinkering with the WeVideo platform, which we're going to get into after break. I've been doing that with my broadcasting and TV3 classes. It was a disaster, but at least now we've learned some things that are going to help us get through it a little bit quicker. And the only thing I think I've got going out next week for you guys from Tuesday into Thursday, which will be the last day we meet before break as kind of like a, hey, see you later, is I'm probably going to assign a very short and simple kind of wellness feedback survey. And I'm going to keep it short. I don't want it to take a lot of time, but I just kind of want to get an idea of, hey, we're going to have 10 days off, but we've been doing digital learning for 3 weeks. What are your thoughts on some things? How do you feel about some things? When we come back and we have some more time doing this, what can I change to make this a little bit better for you? And it's just some feedback stuff. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't get your input and then try and make some changes. Jaden, have cereal. It's healthier than a donut. Get some protein in that milk. Don't eat your homework. Or eat your homework. You know what? That's fine. Eat it. Eat all of it. All right, gang. So I'll hang for a bit. If anyone has any questions or comments, you can feel free to throw them in there. Otherwise, let's wrap on today. Let's call it. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Enjoy your weekend. And I'll see everybody again on Tuesday. All right. I'll talk to you later. And remember, if you're turning anything late, all right, any missing work, get it in by the end of the day today. All right, after today, I'm not taking it. All right. Talk to you soon. All right, email me if you need to, of course. Talk to you later. All right, bye.